Hello, Mr. Paul here, back with a second video on minor scales. So in the last video we went over natural minor scales and some ways of finding those, so if you haven't seen that yet, go back and watch that one. But today we're going to get into two common variations. That would be our harmonic minor and our melodic minor. Alright, so let's get into it. So let's just start with the easy one. Let's go A minor here. And we're going to go natural minor. Boom. All right, easy enough. Okay, so the first variation is pretty simple. All we're gonna do is we're just gonna take our 7th scale degree and we're gonna sharp it. All right, so let's hear what this sounds like. A little more interesting, right? So it kind of has that stereotypical, like, ooh, we're in the desert kind of sound. You could probably really blame movies from, the 1950s and 60s for that. But it is kind of a Western attempt at getting this Eastern kind of sound, even though in reality it doesn't sound that close to a true Eastern sound. But I digress. In our heads, it's just kind of locked in that way over the years. So I'll do that one more time, and this is our harmonic minor. Okay, and then there's something I want to point out about this, and some of the reasons why we maybe want to use it. So let's figure out our step patterns real quick. So A to B is a whole step, B to C is a half step, and we went over some of this in the last video, so I'm just going to kind of go through it quick. Whole step, D to E, whole step, E to F, half step, F to G sharp. What? So let's see, it's not a half step, it's not a whole step either, it's bigger. So that next biggest interval we would call a minor third. So I'm going to write that in here. So that's a little baby M and a 3. Then from G sharp to A is a half step. And that's kind of where the magic actually comes in with this. So what's going on with this scale is we decided that the natural minor, that G doesn't push into A as strong as we would like. Usually a half step would push a little stronger into that. So that's what we did. We said, well, let's just go ahead and sharp the G and or whatever our 7th scale degree is. And we'll get a stronger push into that root tone. So we get this half step at the end instead of a whole step. Nice, sounds good. But this causes a problem. We have a minor third in our scale, and we've kind of made a big to-do about how scales are supposed to be constructed of whole steps in half steps, nothing more, nothing less. And now these rules are starting to kind of break down. But in the classical era, or really I should say romantic era, so around like Beethoven and some of those guys, they started using what they called the melodic minor scale. They didn't like this minor third, so they figured, well, what if we sharp the 6th on the way up as well? So let's do that. Okay, well that eliminates that minor third. So E to F is still a half, or sorry, E to F sharp turns into a whole step. Oop, don't know how to draw a W, close enough. F to G sharp is a whole step. And we still get to keep that half step at the end. So that's kind of the logic there. Well, let's fix the step pattern so it's all whole steps, whole and half steps, but we still get the half step at the end. So if I run this up and down, I get something like this. So in a way, it's kind of nice, but there's another variation specifically on this scale, the melodic minor, where they decide on the way up it sounds minor enough, but on the way down, it kind of sounds too major. So what they do is on the way down, we're gonna make these notes flat again, or in this case, natural. So we're going back to the natural minor on the way down. So melodic on the way up, natural on the way down. So it's really, when we say melodic minor, we're kind of explaining the combination of two different minor scales in a weird way, okay? But what this does, again, is on the way down, it'll sound a lot more minor. And we still don't have to worry about the whole step, half step thing anymore. So if I chart that out like I did in the last video, or at the beginning of this one, you'll see that it's all whole steps and half steps. So it solves the whole step, half step thing, and it still sounds fairly minor. So here's what this sounds like. Going up, I'm going to use the F sharp and G sharp. On the way down, I will not. So again, if you're playing a lot of like romantic stuff like Beethoven and the like, you're gonna run into these scales a lot. So telltale sign is in your sheet music. You might see like a bunch of sharps on the way up a line, and then they all get naturaled out on the way down. That would be a pretty good indicator you have a melodic minor scale in there. Or it might be like nothing on the way up, then a bunch of flats on the way down, and that'd be the same deal. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm gonna run it on one more scale just so we can see how it would look coming from the other side. So we started with a scale that's all naturals. Let's do a scale that's got some flats. All right, so here's an example using C natural minor. So we're gonna write this out. Then what do we need? B flat, E flat, and A flat. Okay, so that's the natural minor. If we do the harmonic minor, it's gonna be pretty much the same thing. But we just get a regular old B this time instead. So if you're thinking in terms of the natural minor, you're kind of thinking you're sharpening that 7th note. If you're thinking in terms of converting a major scale into a minor scale, and you already know you want harmonic minor, you might think, well, I'm just dropping the 3rd and the 6th, I'm not dropping the 7th. Kind of two different ways of thinking of that. Oops, I grabbed my E flat. Oh my goodness, I can't play now. There it is. So there you go. C harmonic minor there, and then here's our C natural minor. And this, in a way, you could think is like, well, it's really just a major scale, but the 3rd is flat. So you might notice in all these, no matter what we're doing, we're always keeping this E flat in there. And if you know a little bit about chords, that might make sense, where it's like really our triads are kind of hanging out in this section of the scale there. And you know, all these minor scales need to kind of have the C minor chord baked into them no matter what. It's the variations that start happening over on this side, right? So that might help you visualize this stuff a little more too. So the natural minor, we get both of those flats in there. Sorry, I can't play today. And then harmonic, we just raise that 7th. And then for the melodic, we're gonna run it up this way, but then it's gonna go down that way, down the natural. So I said, if you're doing jazz, they actually kind of classify those scales a little bit different, specifically the melodic minor, but we don't have to get into that right now. But in classical world, that is indeed what they mean. So hopefully this helps you get through some of your scales. So again, if you know your major scales, like the back of your hand, you can figure out minor scales from there, and then you just got to apply these variations. So I wouldn't worry about these too much until they pop up in your music, and then you can kind of dive into it a little bit deeper. So, all right, that's it for minor scales. We'll save another video for modes and some of these other weird scales that are not nearly as common. Learn these first. All right, see ya.